Are you ready to find out what happens next in The Secret of the Woods? I hope you are. Last time, we left Ruth, Philip, and Terry up in a tree, and something dreadful happened. Suddenly, Philip and I heard a shrill scream, then the crashing of Terry's body through the leaves, then a dull thud, and then silence. Philip and I scrambled down the tree. I sat in the trembling heat, hiding my face. I dared not look. Philip was on his knees beside Terry. Then he came to me. "Ruth," he said in a shaky voice, "I think he's alive. I will have to get a doctor and some men to carry him. You must stay with Terry. You must be brave and stop crying. I can run fast. Terry may die if a doctor doesn't come soon." I looked at Terry. He looked as though he were asleep, only so pale. I wondered if he were dead. If so, where had he gone? Had he gone to be with the Lord, as Jane Collins had? Perhaps he was already with the Good Shepherd. But Terry didn't know about the Good Shepherd. Oh, if only I had told him. "Oh, God," I whispered, "please make Terry better. Don't let Terry die. Give me a chance to tell him about the Good Shepherd." Amen. It seemed like forever until Philip came back. The doctor examined Terry, then he looked at me. "Has the boy moved since he fell?" he asked. "No," I whispered. "Is he dead?" "No," he answered gently. "He's not dead, but he's very badly hurt. You were brave to stay here alone." Gently, the doctor lifted Terry to a stretcher and took him to the hospital. He promised to let us know how Terry was. When we returned home, Philip and I had no appetite for dinner. We told Aunt Margaret all about Terry, but not about our hideout. She tried to comfort us, but we were glad when it was bedtime. Aunt Margaret came up and kissed us goodnight. As soon as she had gone, I hopped out of bed and ran to Philip's room. I'm sure he had been crying. "Ruth, do you think he'll die?" Philip asked. "No," I answered decidedly. "I don't. When you were gone and I was all alone with Terry, I prayed to God that Terry would get better. So I expect he will." "So did I," Philip admitted. "All the way home I was praying. But I don't know if God heard me, 'cause I'm not really good all the time." "But Philip, you don't have to be really good. You have to belong to the shepherd. I've been wanting to tell you ever since I ran away. We are like the sheep that get lost, and we need Jesus to find us. And if we ask him to, he'll come and find us," I explained. "Did you ask him to find you?" Philip asked. I nodded. "I did it on my way home from the minister's house under a tree in the woods. I asked him to forgive me for being naughty, and I asked him to find me and make me one of his lambs. And oh, Philip, I wish you belonged to the shepherd too," I said. "I wish I did," Philip said in a sober voice. "Do you think I could?" "I'm sure you could," I answered. "I should think you'd be much easier to find than me, because you're so much better. I don't think you'd take much finding at all." But Philip shook his head. "You don't know. You only see the outside. I'm not at all good on the inside." "Well," I argued, "it doesn't matter. I'll show you my picture and you'll see." I tiptoed across the hall and returned with my precious picture. We took it to the window where we could see it in the moonlight. Philip looked at it for a long time. "Could I ask him now, Ruth?" he asked. I nodded. "Then you must go away," he explained, "because I shall have to do this alone. We'll talk about it in the morning." So I left him, with his elbows on the windowsill, looking at the hills. I snuggled into my bed and stared sleepily at the millions of stars and thought of Philip and how the angels in heaven were singing for joy because another sinner had come to Jesus. Poor Terry, he was very badly hurt. He had hurt his head and his back and would be in the hospital in the big city for months. We wished we could visit Terry, but the city was too far away. We had to be satisfied with writing letters to him. We told him all about the woods and the flowers and the birds and how much we missed him. Then one day we got a letter from Terry. He was home from the hospital, but had to stay in bed all the time. He asked us to come and visit him. He gave us his address, Willow Cottage, the Hollow Tanglewoods. My aunt said we could visit Terry, for she was sure he must be very lonesome. Just don't stay too long, she warned us. We found an old, broken-down cottage with rags stuffed in the broken windows. The chimney was half down, and the slates were blown off the roof, making holes in it. There was a little stream flowing outside the door. We were sure no one lived in that place. Surely Terry can't live there, Philip said in dismay as we started to go away. Then the door opened, and a woman stared at us. She had dark skin, and her hair was tied in a handkerchief. We knew she was a gypsy. Her face looked tired and unhappy. But she had dark eyes that reminded us of Terry. "Well," she asked, "what be you kids a-wanting here?" "Please," explained Philip, "Terry wrote us a letter to come and see him, but we can't find where he lives." "Be you the children as was with my Terry when he fell?" she asked suspiciously. She jerked the door back roughly and led the way inside. The room was gloomy, hot, and airless. There was only one window, and it was too high to see through. We forgot this in a minute, for we spied Terry. He was on a bed in a corner, but we hardly knew it was Terry, for he had changed so much. He was thin and pale and looked so unhappy. He did not smile or move at all. He just lay still and looked at the ceiling. His eyes filled with tears when he saw us, and we immediately knew how much he had suffered in the past months. Our visit was not a happy one, for Terry was very cross and tired. He complained about not being able to move or see out the window. He did not know how to read well, and there seemed little for him to do. How dreadful it was for him. Terry's mother brought him lunch while we were there. It was a cup of tea and a thin crust of bread. Poor Terry would not eat a crumb. No wonder he was thin as a stick. He said, "My mother had to stop her working to take care of me, and there's no money for anything." How I wished I had brought him some food for him. Philip promised to bring the bird book for Terry to see. "We have to go to the dentist tomorrow, but we'll come the next day," he said to Terry. "For certain sure?" said Terry. "For certain sure," Philip said. As I walked home, I was so thankful for my strong legs and body, and for my room with windows to see from, and for the good food Aunt Margaret made us. If only Terry could have such things. We went to see Terry often, and I believe that it was only our visits that kept him alive through those long days when he lay flat on his aching back, staring at the wall. We took him baskets of fruit from the orchard, huge red apples, polished until we could see ourselves in the shining skins. Aunt Margaret sent him little presents. Terry's mother was interested in the apples. "Did you pick up those in your garden?" she asked. We were surprised, for she seldom bothered to speak to us at all. The nights were getting very hot, I used to kick the bed clothing off and lie by the open window, trying to cool off. It was one of those nights that I tiptoed into Philip's room and found him with his head out the window. I pushed him a little and stuck my head out beside him. We watched the moon climb over the horizon. It was just like daylight outside. "Phil," I whispered excitedly, "have you ever been outside on the hills at night?" "No," answered Philip, "I haven't. Why?" "Let's go," I said. "Come on, Phil." I gave his arm a pull. Philip and I tiptoed down the hall to the front door and turned the key. It creaked and grated alarmingly, but nothing happened. No one had heard us. We stood on the front lawn and marveled at the beauty. The world seemed strange and different, and the sky, with its millions of stars, looked far away. I slipped my hand into Philip's, and we tiptoed toward the orchard. We were well into the orchard when Philip suddenly stopped dead and dug his fingernails into my arm. With his other hand, he pointed, and my heart seemed to turn right over. A tall figure in a dark coat was moving towards us through the trees, bowed under the weight of his staff. She had not seen us, for we stood hidden in the shadow of the apple trees. "It's a woman stealing apples," Philip whispered. He stepped out in front of her. The moonlight shone on her face, and we knew in a flash who it was. It was Terry's mother. She gave a short, terrified shriek and dropped the sack. Apples scattered in all directions. She dropped to her knees and covered her face with her hands. Her whole body shook with sobs. "Listen to me. I know I shouldn't ought to come, but my Terry's a-dying. The doctor tells me he needs more food and more milk and warmer blankets, or else he'll die. And my Terry, he's all I got. If they find out he don't get enough food, they'll take him away from me. Oh, my little lady and little gentleman, don't tell on me. And don't have my Terry took away from me. I know I was wrong to steal, and I won't ever do it again. So please don't tell the police and have them take away me Terry from me." She pleaded with us. "We won't tell," Philip replied kindly. "I have an idea. We'll talk about it tomorrow when we come to visit Terry. We promised not to tell, don't we, Ruth?" "Oh, yes," I agreed. "We won't say anything, and we'll come back tomorrow. God bless you, and God forgive me for being a wicked woman," Terry's mother whispered. She picked up her empty sack and was gone through the hedge. We crept upstairs and tumbled into bed. I was just falling asleep when Philip's head came around the door. "How much is there in our money box?" he whispered. "About $9, I murmured back drowsily, and the next minute I was deep in the land of dreams. I thought about Terry's mother as I helped my aunt the next day. I thought of her words the night before. God forgive me for being a wicked woman. Of course God would forgive her if she really wanted him to. If she were a wicked woman who stole things, she was just like the poor sheep on the cliff, and the Good Shepherd was looking for her. Perhaps I should tell her about the Good Shepherd. He would look after Terry and her, and she could ask him for milk and blankets for Terry. When I finished with my work, I hurried upstairs. There, I found Philip with the contents of our money box spread out on the floor. "Almost $9, he said. "Almost enough for a camera. If we gave Terry $2 for milk, we would still have almost enough and could save that much by winter and get the camera." "Oh, but I don't think we need to give him that much," I cried. $1 would buy an awful lot of milk." "Well," Philip said, "we'll think about it on the way. We'll just take the whole box with us." We set off on the trail that led to Terry's house. I carried my Bible, and Philip carried the money box. Terry's mother met us on the way because she wanted to talk to us without Terry hearing her. We sat down under a tree, and I began talking first. I told her about the Good Shepherd and read from my Bible about Jesus. I gave her my picture to keep and told her that if she would ask him, the Good Shepherd would forgive her for being bad, as he had forgiven me and Philip. While I was talking to her, a new idea came to my mind. The Good Shepherd had given his life for the sheep, and I didn't want to give more than $1. If only I had thought about it in time, I would have told Philip to give $2. But Philip was already unfastening the money box. Terry's mother was watching with big eyes. "We brought you some money," Philip said, "to buy some milk and things for Terry. It's not very much, but it's all we've got." And so saying, he dumped all the money into her apron. "Thank you, oh thank you, little lady and little man." There were tears running in the woman's eyes. Philip and I walked on in silence. Then he whispered, "Ruth, I hope you don't mind my giving all our money to Terry's mother. Terry seems more important than any camera to me." I squeezed his hand. It was exactly the way that I felt. The next time we saw Terry, he seemed to be worse. "Wish I was dead," he complained. We had never seen Terry so discouraged. We couldn't blame him much. Lying in that hot, cheerless, stuffy cabin all day long was no fun. I thought of how Terry used to climb and run and jump. It seemed terrible to see him suffer like this. We did not stay long, for Terry seemed to want to be alone that day. I think he knew that he would never walk again. He had told us that he heard the doctor say, "It's all up with the poor boy. I can do nothing for him." Terry said, "They thought I didn't hear that, but I did, and now I know the truth." I thought a lot about Terry, that maybe he would be better someday. Philip must have thought about it too, for as we walked, he said to me, "Do you still pray every day that Terry will get well, Ruth?" "No," I answered, "for it seems that he is getting worse. Perhaps God does not want him to get well. But God could do a miracle and make him well, you know." "It's not just Terry's being sick that bothers me," continued Philip. "It's that awful little house. It's so hot and dark and it smells awful. There's nothing for him to look at all day long." I agreed, but there was nothing else for Terry to do. He did not want to be in the hospital, for he would never be able to see us or his mother. We were talking so earnestly that we almost bumped into someone coming out of our back door. It was Terry's mother. Her eyes were red, and we knew she had been crying. We hurried in because we knew she did not want us to see her looking like that. My aunt said nothing about the visitor, but the next day she went to town for the day. Philip and I were left to run the house. I was chief cook, and it was fun, except I burned the pudding. When my aunt returned, she was happy and told us that after dinner she would tell us where she had been. It was a secret. What was the secret? What's going to happen? Will Terry be all right? You'll have to wait and find out next time in our story of The Secret in the Woods.